Welcome to the Fintech Diversity Radar's Female Founders Series by Findexable. My name is Linda Say, and I'm your host for today. In this series, I have the great pleasure of talking to fintech leaders around the world about gender diversity in their part of the world, in their region, and specifically what it takes for women to thrive and be successful. It's a pretty tough landscape, so lots to talk about there. And today I'm super excited to be speaking with Lesley Li. She's the founder and CEO of Impact, which is based in Berlin, Germany. Lesley and I met about a year and a half ago, actually, in October of 2019 at the Money 2020 Rise Up program. She was one of only 35 ladies to be invited, and it was a well-deserved invite, and she's literally on fire. So Lesley, welcome, and thanks for chatting with me today. It's good to see you.
Fantastic to be here. I'm very excited. Bring it on.
Well, that's what I love about you. You've got so much, just energy and just greatness, but you've been really busy, right? So since I saw you in 2019, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started Impact literally like the month after Rise Up. Is that right?
Exactly right. Exactly right. So to Rise Up was a big inspiration for me. I remember one of the last days, if you remember that, I went up to you with tears. That's after the session from the CEO of Grasshopper Bank. I was very much inspired about topics across empowerment, about being courageous, talk about Wolfpack. So yes, I was really full of fire, came back from Las Vegas, and I was saying, let's do it. So then just about being fearless and do it. And that was when we got accepted into an incubator program in Berlin, which is focusing on female founders and also underrepresented founders. That was the start of the journey.
You know, that's what I love about what I do. I get to see kind of the light bulb moment for so many female founders, and just to see that spark. And I saw that in you that day, and I that was my goal, my clue to start following you, and I did. So just amazing stuff, great things that are happening. I did a little bit of research, and I'm going to refer to my notes here because I don't want to mess it up. But since you started, you were chosen by Visa and a whole bunch of German banks as the winner of the Fintech for Impact Challenge. And this one I love. So you are the recipient of funding from the EU's European Social Fund. And that, I mean, they must be pretty selective with that. So that seems pretty amazing too. All really great stuff happening for you, Lesley.
That's right. And then we have more news after that. So we've, so starting from the September last year, that was the Fintech for Impact Challenge. Organized by Visa and 13 German banks, where we presented our solution that we're focusing on the sustainable investment as a service. And we were chosen to be the overall winner out of, there was a lot of startups, a lot more advanced than us. And from there, we got our first corporate client. A corporate client, and then became our investor. That's right. That's right.
That's amazing, Lesley. Really, congratulations. So let's take a step back. So tell me about Impact. What does it do? What is the problem that it solves?
Right. So we focus on the field of sustainable investment. The biggest problem here is this huge information gap between offers from financial products providers like banks, fund providers, and the needs of people like you and me, the individual investors. And we've seen a huge hype on the sustainable investment space since the beginning of the pandemic. And then that is the problem of lacking transparency and information asymmetry. It has really triggered this whole wave of greenwashing, or rainbow washing, if you like, in the market. Yeah. And this really has left individual investors at a disadvantaged position. Yes. So at Impact, what we're doing here is really enable these individual investors to do good while doing well.
That's amazing. And I love that idea, the concept of sustainable investment as a service. And you're right. So, we're all starting to focus on how can we do better? How can we make this a better world? How can we put our money and investments into those initiatives that matter? I love, that we have sustainable development goals. It's really, in my opinion, a shame that they've been around since 2015 and nobody really has done much about it. But I do see, things starting to happen. And the fact that you can match make, is just, I love that idea. And you can kind of bring more transparency to it, and help individual investors with goals get started. So that's a really great idea. I love it.
Thank you. We're very excited about that.
Yeah. And too, Lesley, there's synergies here with the Fintech Diversity Radar, because this is also focused on SDGs. So it's the 5th, which is gender equality, and the 17th, which is bringing light to those fintechs and financial service providers that are doing well in this area, who are actually, are walking the talk, so to speak, and bringing them together in partnership. So I'm right there with you. I'm tracking with you. Yes.
Fantastic. And one thing we see about the SDGs, well, from the interviews we've done with users, they think it's almost becoming a high-level PR thingy. Everyone talk about SDGs, but what does it actually mean? But what we can do is that bring it close to people's lives. What can they do to embrace the change and what the SDGs around them? And we want to make SDGs cool. Make it very, well, it can be fun as well, which is the focus of our fintech. We're appealing to millennials, for example, the people who have no idea about finance.
Exactly. And that's what I love about this. So you're making it easy to understand, fun, cool, and especially for that new wave of investors that are coming up behind us. So I just love the idea. So I think that's awesome. So tell me, Lesley, what inspired you to go out and start your own company? I mean, you must have been thinking about this idea way before I saw you or met you. But what inspired you? And how did you, when was that? Where was that? Just tell me a little bit about that story.
I always thought it's not just all of a sudden light bulb moment. I always felt that the life all this long time is leading up to this. I'm founding this. I've got 2 stories for you about this, how it's leading to this, or where your impact come from. Right. My first story is that I joined JP Morgan on 15th of September 2008. I'm not sure whether you or the audience remember that date, but that was the day Lehman Brothers went bankrupt.
Oh, right.
I joined the credit trading department as a graduate at the peak of the credit crisis. How crazy was that? So I lived through one of those worst financial crises, which was caused by how banks capitalized on this information asymmetry between financial institutions and the individual people. Right. That's how it happened, right? The mis-selling of credit products, subprime mortgages, is because the bank knows something that people don't know, right? And there are so many other examples like that, which highlights a profound problem, which is inequality, if you think about it. And I've got my second story. So my second story is a bit more personal. 21 years ago, my parents, they took the leap of faith by giving me all of their saving, all their life saving, sent me to the UK, and hoping that I would get the best education they could ever dream of. This typical Chinese parents' behavior, give everything to the kids on education. Right. So after my journey full of blood, sweat, and tear, working in McDonald's as a cleaning offices, I made it. I made it to the best university in the world.
Wow.
Then I worked for the biggest Wall Street banks over a decade.
Yes.
Only to find out one thing. Later on, you see all these glamorous financial institutions, they're not really there trying hard to make things work for the majority of the society, right?
Right.
And it also became very clear to me that knowledge is the only thing can change someone's life.
Right.
For good, not in the short term. We're talking about long-term lasting effect.
Right.
And transparency is the biggest enabler of all.
Yes.
That's my belief.
Yeah.
So with that belief, I took a leap of faith myself by quitting my banking job in 2019 and founded Impact, really with the passion, with the mission to democratize sustainable investment,
Right.
but providing this ultimate transparency of financial products to the individuals beyond just financial returns.
Yeah.
That's how it was started.
Well, first of all, what an incredible first day with them. But, you know, what an impact that had on you. And I couldn't agree more. Knowledge is power. And, you know, having that transparency is critical, you know, in the way forward. So I love both those stories. And I love that you took a leap of faith. That's amazing too. I love that. So thank you for sharing. So when you're starting your company, what kind of obstacles did you have to overcome? Kind of walk me through that piece of it. Like, you know, were you able to get capital right away? Were you not? Just kind of, you know, share that little bit of it for me.
So I have to admit, when I first started, I was really naive. So I had this vision, I had this passion. I wanted to work on something that make an impact. So I did it without knowing anything about startup, about entrepreneurship. So when I thought, okay, how hard could it be? It's just where you have a good idea, and then you go out and then you get money and you build it. Right. So we bootstrapped for a year.
Okay.
It's not just myself. So, I mean, my passion convinced my co-founders, two of them. One
Yes.
I used to study back in 2006, back in Cambridge when we did engineering together. And the other one we worked with, we worked together in Barclays. And then three of us, first-time founders, we bootstrapped for a whole year, before we got our first ever funding.
Yes.
That's right. So that period, that was the hardest.
Yeah.
I feel the hardest time for a newly born startup is right at the beginning, especially for first-time founders like myself and my team. And
Right.
I come from a corporate background. My diary back then was really dictated by others' objectives in the workplace, right? So you do this, you do that. My diary was full every day. I didn't have to think what I should do whatsoever. As a startup at the start, I felt that, wow, I'm in control of everything, which is
Right.
a double-sided sword.
Yes.
It's very easily to get distracted by all sorts of things that aren't actually essential
Yeah.
to grow the startup.
Yes.
So that was hard. That was really hard to find the focus, to really understand what it takes to grow a startup, to being funded.
Right.
Right? Getting first funding was super hard, because getting funding means that you need to be getting close to product market fit, if
Right.
not yet already achieved that, right?
Right.
But how do you get to product market fit? No one taught a first-time founder. So that was one of the biggest obstacles, where we just read books, went to seminars, learned about it. That was the time that those incubator programs really came in super helpful.
Right.
It took us a whole year to gain our first funding, and then 4 months to gain the second funding. So it's like it's almost like a computer game, if you like.
Right.
Once you're getting better at it, and then you accelerate, and you
Right.
see the hockey stick graph starting to show.
Right.
That's right. Getting through to product market fit, or rather founder market fit, as quickly as possible is the key to secure funding.
Wow. That's interesting. So you mentioned that you have co-founders. Are they female or are they male co-founders?
They are male founders.
Okay.
They are male founders.
Do
But
you,
that's something I really would love to have a female founder with me at the start.
yeah. But I do wonder, and my question here is, do you think it made a difference that you had male co-founders on your team? Because, I mean, we know the stats, right? Unfortunately, VCs don't give a lot of investments to female founders. You know, it's, I think, something like 3%. So I'm just curious if you think that that might have played a part in helping you get your first round, or not. I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Actually, I think it's the opposite.
Okay.
It's right, the 3% statistic is totally true. There's not enough female founders getting the investments at all.
Right.
But I think, but from the VCs I've talked to, they some of them even have a quota. They want to have more female founders
Right.
that's in their portfolio. But the problem is they can't find any. So I've done a lot of thinking on that. Why is that? So I follow the path of I did STEM subjects in university. So I did engineering in Cambridge. And then I went into finance. And then I went into tech, and now I'm in fintech. But I know how it was like along the way. Start from school. The girls did math or engineering. There was already very, very, very few. Right? It started from there. And then it didn't get better, because it can't get better. If you don't have a major in a numerical subject, you simply won't have the thought of going to finance, and you won't become an engineer. If you didn't choose math as a major beforehand, you simply would not go down that path. It just doesn't fit. Right. And then the story, it really doesn't get better. So you see finance, right? I have a finance background. I was quite often the only lady in the room, let alone the ethnic minority lady, like the Chinese lady in the room. So that really, it's not that they don't want to. It's the numbers just aren't there.
Right.
The problem started a lot earlier.
Right. It's systemic. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I hear you. You know, how do we bring more female entrepreneurs into the system way earlier? Because you're right, there just aren't that many. So it's a really good point.
Yeah, and that's right. And also I know a lot of female entrepreneurs, and there is a pattern in there. So ladies or female, we tend to be a lot more modest. But in a world of entrepreneurship, a lot of the time that the opportunities I got myself is by sticking my hand up, the first one, and then kept my hand up. And then a lot of times I found myself say, well, everyone's got their cameras off or muted. I was the only one who said, I will unmute myself. I will put my camera on. I will ask that question. I will introduce myself. I will sell myself. But then it's not just, it's about having that drive and that steam, if you like, that fire in you that people can't ignore you anymore. But this is what ladies tend not to do.
Yes, absolutely. So true. I mean, I've seen it so much, you know, in the Rise Up program and beyond that. You know, it's really, how do we get women to understand, you know, that they have the right to raise their hand and ask the questions and to be seen. So I'm so happy that you raised your hand and that you want to be heard, and that you're going to be heard. So, we all can take lessons from you on that for sure.
And that is not just intrinsic. It has to be learned, because I've seen someone did it. It was a role model who
Yes.
did it, and it worked. And then I then do it too. So, oh, that worked well. I would do as well. So this is what is needed, right? You see a role model put out there. This is how she did it. You know what? Let me do that as well. And this is how female entrepreneurs can learn from each other, like amplify the power.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. So tell me a little bit about what you're doing within You Impact, or even personally, to help address some of these diversity issues and make a difference.
So for me, I am part of several female founder groups. So that's the place where we exchange our knowledge. But what is more importantly, when I need to hire someone, I advertise that first. Say, ladies, come on, take the job.
Yes.
Let's see whether we can fill that first. Then we move on to other groups. How about that, first of all? And secondly, I talked about the most obvious one is mentorship. Mentorship, that is the role model effect again. So I do that. I don't just do that with entrepreneurs. I do that with people still in school, still in university. Because I wish someone told me when I was in university, when I was a young girl, that was something I thought that should be profoundly addressed when they were young enough, rather than they already had stereotyping in their mind. But of course, that can always be changed at every single stage.
Right. I think that's it, right? So we all have a responsibility to not only mentor, but then to sponsor as well. So, those of us that are out here doing that mindfully are definitely helping, to groom and grow the ladies behind us. So I'm glad that you're actively doing that.
Definitely, the wolf pack effect is real, and it works.
It does.
It worked on me. It will work on others. So I would like to really pass on that torch.
Yes, absolutely. So Lesley, what's next for You Impact, and for you personally?
Well, for You Impact, when it comes to the company, what is really my baby. The mission is there to democratize sustainable investment. It's such a tiny market share of it now. It's 5%. I want, like, the mission, the ultimate goal for us to be there is for this whole sustainable investment industry to disappear, because everyone will be having sustainable investment in their portfolio. You don't need that anymore. Just like female founders, right? There is no female in founders anymore. It's just founders. What is the difference? Because it's not a problem anymore. Right. So this is something that we, as I was saying, that we gained our first partner in Germany. And what we're doing is that we're building a truly sustainable fund platform with this partner to fight greenwashing and to empower individual investors to put their money into the future that they want to build. That's what I want to do. When it comes to myself, I have a 6-year-old daughter, so it really is very, very close to my heart to address this gender equality as well as empowerment problem. I don't want her 15 years down the line getting into a workplace still having this glass ceiling problem. People are still talking about female founders. So that for me personally is very, very important. So I'm involved with her school, talk about promoting STEM subjects for her classmates. They're 6-year-olds, but it changes. It really makes a lot of difference. And I personally found joy in inspiring others. That's something I would really love to do, to really pass it on. What I have learned, what I have gained, how can I inspire someone else? That, to me, that's the true amplifier. When someone really get into the idea of, I'm not there to just take a job. I'm there to create jobs.
Right.
And this is how societies thrive.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, as a parent of a daughter, you of course only want the best for them in the best world. And that's actually something I will discuss with my male counterparts who have daughters. It's like, if you have a daughter, don't you want to see a different world for her down the road as well? And of course they do, but they just don't kind of think about it, I think, as much as we would as moms. And certainly you have inspired me. So I really appreciate the conversation today, Lesley, and catching up with you. Keep on keeping on with the great work. And thank you for being here. The Fintech Diversity Radar is building the world's first data set on gender diversity, and it's on a global basis. And here's how you can help us bridge the gender gap. If you are a fintech or a financial service provider, please consider taking our survey on findexable.com. It's anonymous. It only takes a few minutes, but the data is critical, and we need that data going in. Follow us on Findexable social media platforms and be a part of the conversation. There's some great conversations going on out there about gender diversity in the industry. Be a part of that. Follow Findexable on their YouTube channel. And of course, if you need more information, please don't hesitate to reach out at info@findexable.com. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.